Hi there. Welcome to our Facebook Live broadcast. I'm Angela Russell. We're in Seattle, Washington, the home of Zillow. And I'm with Zillow's Chief Marketing Officer, Jeremy Waxman. Jeremy, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
It's sunny in Seattle.
I know.
This is like big news, guys. Well, look, we're talking about everything you need to know about buying a home. This is the most competitive market we've seen in a long time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are entering the most competitive shopping season we've seen in recent memory.
Okay.
Inventory is down even more so, about 5%. And take Seattle, where we all live. Inventory is down 11%. Prices are up 11%. So if you're a buyer, you're walking into a very competitive environment.
Right. So that's why we're here, because for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about this. So if you have questions, post them, and we'll give them to Jeremy here, so no pressure. We'll answer your questions, or if you just want to tell us about your experience, we'd love to know about it. So in terms of what can buyers do to stand out in a situation like this that's so competitive?
Yeah, so a lot of people know the financing part, right? Most people are going to get a mortgage, so getting a pre-qualification letter and working with a mortgage lender, figuring out what you can afford and your down payment. And many folks have read about the love letter, right? Like writing a home to the seller, or writing a letter to the seller about how you're going to make this house a home and how you're going to make it yours. Those are definitely tips that do work. But I think not as many people focus on finding a great agent and a great professional to help you. Finding someone who is skilled in negotiating, who is dealing and used to dealing with these multiple offer and these bidding war situations, and finding someone who has experience working in your price range and in your neighborhood. That can be a big help for you to stand out when you're dealing with multiple offers on a house that you're trying to buy.
Sure. So let's go back to that love letter, because now that it's the secret's out on that,
yeah.
Has it lost its sizzle? Is it still working? Or there's some special things we should address to make the love letter just more lovely?
I think it depends on the seller. I don't think it hurts. We've been on both sides of that. When we sold a house, we actually sold to someone who wrote a great letter about why they were going to make it theirs. And we had to make 3 offers on homes before we bought one. And so by then, we were starting to write a letter saying, why we were in love with this house. So it absolutely depends on the seller and situation, but I don't think it can hurt.
Okay, that's true. Okay, if you're just joining us, I'm with Zillow's Chief Marketing Officer. This is Jeremy Waxman. We're in Seattle, and we're talking about everything you need to know about buying a home. Last time we did this broadcast, we talked about selling. Yeah. But for buyers, this really is important because it is so competitive. I mean, you were talking about the inventory. I mean, what are the hottest markets, or I guess the markets that would be most difficult for buyers?
Yeah, so Seattle, Portland, Nashville, Denver are some of your hottest markets in terms of price appreciation and low inventory. You'll have a slightly easier time in places like Baltimore or Miami, but I couch that in all markets are competitive and all markets are tough right now. So, set your expectations accordingly. And the big tip for everyone is just take a deep breath and be patient. It's going to take a while.
Right. And speaking, this is a great question. It ties in. Swati would like to know, is there a best time to buy?
Yes. So August, we think, is the best time to buy. It's the time which inventory is at its peak in theory. And sellers who have had their inventory on the market might be most willing to look at price changes or, multiple types of offers. So if you can wait and you can pick, August is your time.
Okay, so now you know. All right, so what about first-time home buyers? What are some things you'd like to pass along for those folks?
Yeah, so first-time home buyers, the big challenge is affordability. First-time home buyers in general are 50% more likely to go over their budget than repeat home buyers.
And why is that?
Yeah, that's really driven by 2 things, right? So we talked a bunch about the inventory crunch and affordability. That drives it. You think you can buy here and you end up having to buy here, or really push on your comfort level of your budget. But the other problem is people just don't know the costs that go into buying a home. Most first-time home buyers are coming off of renting, and they're used to a rent payment and a fixed amount, and they don't think about things like utilities and maintenance, and they don't think about things like taxes and insurance. So those pieces add up, and when you're comparing X thousand a month to a mortgage, you don't always do this apples-to-apples comparison.
Right. Isn't the average like $9,000 a year for home maintenance?
Yeah, the national average for home maintenance is $9,000 a year. And many renters may have had utilities included, and utilities can be another couple $100 a month or couple $1,000 a year that they weren't thinking about when they were using that mortgage calculator.
Okay. Any other pitfalls for first-time home buyers that you can think of? Like, make sure you do this.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is allow enough time.
Okay.
Right? So start shopping early. Yes, get your financing squared away, but also relax your places which you're looking. Sometimes you zoom in on a neighborhood and you say, I absolutely want to live in that neighborhood, and the neighborhood right adjacent to it is actually where inventory might be more affordable or more available. And if you need to buy or you're looking to buy, you may need that.
Okay, so if you haven't been able to tell so far, we're talking about everything you need to know about buying a home this year. It really is a competitive time throughout the country. So if you have questions, you can post them here, and Jeremy will get to them. We still have some other things to talk about. And you mentioned in terms of first-time home buyers, but for anyone buying a home, the down payment is a big deal. So what's some advice you have about that and how we can navigate what can be a challenging situation?
Yeah, so conventional wisdom is about 20% of the purchase price down. That gets you a conventional loan. But you can actually buy a home with as little as 3.5% down. You can look at things like the FHA loan program. If you're a veteran, you can look at the VA loan. And saving for that down payment, especially in these less affordable markets, can be a challenge. We actually see that about a third of first-time home buyers, they what we call second source their down payment, which is they're borrowing from other investments. They might be borrowing from the bank of mom and dad and planning to pay it back.
Oh, there's a bank like that? Mom, I didn't have that, no.
But I think finding creative ways to come up with it, or looking at these alternative loan programs, which may bring with it a higher mortgage rate because you're paying something called PMI, or private mortgage insurance.
Right.
But those can be options to get in and get started.
Right. And when you have a competitive situation like this, you have to kind of think about out-of-the-box resources, right?
Yep.
And speaking of out-of-the-box, so you're in a competitive situation. Let's see, you're on your third house that you've been, it didn't work out, and now you're back in the market. What are some things you can do to find homes that maybe everyone else isn't seeing?
Yeah, so the two things that I think you should consider are, one, look at other types of inventory. So Zillow has a great feature called Make Me Move, which is homes that aren't for sale, but a homeowner has said, I'm not looking to sell right now, but if you offer me that home, or offer me that price, I would raise my hand. Those can be great things to look at. You can also look at things like for sale by owner, or kind of pre-market inventory. The other thing, as we talked about, is just broaden that search criteria. So you've picked a neighborhood or an area based on your commute and the choices you want to make, but look at the surrounding neighborhoods and look at things that are a little bit further away, or a little bit closer in, or a little bit smaller or bigger than you were considering, to just give yourself more chances to find a place to buy.
Okay, so Mark joined us, and he has a great question that I think a lot of people are dealing with. So Mark wants to know, how do you time, or do you have any advice around how do you time selling your current home while you're shopping for a new home? That's always so complicated, or can be.
It is, and it's definitely, sellers, even in a seller's market, have some of the same stress as buyers because of that situation where they need to know they can sell before they can turn around and buy. The biggest thing we can give as advice is start that process really early. Find an agent that will help you pick the right price so that your house will sell quickly. In many markets it will if you price it right and you market it right. And so list it well right out of the gate, and that gives you the most flexibility then to go buy.
Yeah.
The other piece would be, if you're going to get multiple offers, some buyers are going to be more flexible on closing date. So, and I'll give the same advice for sellers and buyers. Sellers might be looking for someone who gives them more flexibility on when they have to move out. Buyers can make themselves stand out more by doing that, by saying, I can be more flexible. I can give you a little bit more time to actually move out of your house once we've bought it from you.
Yeah. And with it being a seller's market in most cities around the country, I don't know where you live, Mark, but it seems like you could, if worst case scenario, you sell your home first, and you could probably rent somewhere until you find the perfect one.
That is what a lot of people end up doing, and then they jump right into the conversation we're talking about today, which is the struggle of being a buyer and trying to find that place.
Yeah. We have another question. This is, and please forgive me if I pronounced your name wrong, Ignacio. Forgive me if I butchered it, but he has a great question. Tools for gauging market strength. What are some tools that you know of are available for gauging the strength of the market where you live?
Yeah, so Zillow has great stats on every market. You can look at neighborhood and zip code level, and we'll tell you how hot or cold, how much of a buyer's or a seller's market is it, how much are home prices rising or falling, how much inventory is there. So that's one great tool. And then I go back to finding a great professional. So if you know you're going to look in this neighborhood or this part of town, let's say you're going to look in the north part of Seattle, finding an agent that is really skilled and really experienced in those neighborhoods, they're going to be your greatest guide in terms of what to look out for and how to navigate.
Yeah. So what if the area you want this neighborhood, it's close to work, or it's close to where you you could just see yourself, and you just can't find the home, or you keep getting people that bid higher than you. What about fixer-uppers? Because it just seems you might be able to get a better deal and, put some sweat equity into it. And what do you think about that? Or what does our research show?
I think the lore that a fixer-upper is a discount is it's not really true, because in a seller's market, sellers are able to list homes as is, and buyers are willing to buy them with the warts that they come with. So that idea that you're going to buy it cheaper and be able to save money on fixing it up it doesn't pencil financially. Now, many folks love buying something that they can make their own, and they love the sweat equity of turning it into their home.
Right.
That's the reason to go after something that you can kind of put your imprint on, but you shouldn't be doing it to try and find a deal or to try and save
But
money.
if you're really handy, you probably could, do something, right?
You can, but you shouldn't be thinking about that as a way to save against its value. And I think that value is going to be priced in, especially in a market where a seller can say, hey, this is what this home is worth if it was fixed up, and many buyers are going to go, great, I recognize that and I'll pay you for it.
Okay, and by the way, I'm still focused on the fact that you talked about homes having warts. I just think that's hilarious. Like, I've never used that word to go with. That was perfect. Okay, so you've talked several times about the importance of finding the right agent. Any tips on how do we go about doing that, or questions to ask them so we make sure we're getting the right fit? Because if you get into a bidding war, you want the right person.
Yep. The two biggest things are find an agent that works in the neighborhood you are interested in and the price range you're interested in. So they're used to working with people who look similar to you from a client base, and then find someone who talks on your terms, right? We did a bunch of research with buyers and sellers, and it's interesting, people's preferences for phone versus email versus text versus Facebook Messenger, it's kind of even across the board. So an agent that works with you on your terms and converses with you naturally and works in your price range in your neighborhood, that's the best. And then the last thing is someone you click with, right? You're going to meet folks. Many folks interview a couple agents before picking one. And you're going to find someone you click with. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this person. You're going to have a lot of discussion with this person. You want them to be a trusted partner.
Okay. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Jeremy Waxman. He is the Chief Marketing Officer for Zillow. I'm Angela Russell, and we're here in Seattle, and we're talking about everything you need to know about buying a home. We've learned a lot of great info so far, like the best time to buy is in August, so that's a good thing. Find yourself a great agent, do the research, fixer-uppers,
Take a deep breath and have patience.
Take a deep breath, have patience. And we did have a question that just came in from Crystal, and she wants to know anything to worry about with buying a for sale by owner home.
Yeah, so for sale by owners can be great additional inventory to look at. And you'll find two types of sellers. You'll find sellers that are just kind of testing the waters. So they haven't really done the marketing, the prep to know whether they're really listing it. And when you contact them, they're actually not so interested. But you'll find people who are trying to do it themselves and put their toe in the water before they might sell it. So in both cases, I would say having a great agent representing you as a buyer is the way to navigate that, right? Because that agent will help you understand that price versus the neighborhood price and what might be different about that piece of inventory versus what else is available.
Okay, so before we go, let's make sure we talk about, this is an important piece, but mortgage rates, because it definitely has been in the news. Okay, that we're expecting them to creep up. What does this mean for the market? What does it mean for us?
Yeah, so mortgage rates are off the bottom, but still at historic lows when you think over generations. And the media and we all talk a lot about mortgage rates, but as a buyer, if you really do the math, if you're buying a $200,000 house and mortgage rates go from 4 to 4.25%, that's $23 a month more in a mortgage payment. Okay. So it's not going to break your bank or your budget as rates tick up a little bit.
Okay.
So you shouldn't let a small change in rates really dictate how you're searching. That said, you want to obviously get the best rate you can afford. That's the way to save the most money. So once you're in the process and you're qualifying for loan, you want to do as good a job as you can at getting the best rate, but you shouldn't let that small change in rates really dictate how you think about search.
I feel like the theme of all this was for us to just relax, be patient. The world is not ending. It's okay. You'll find the right house. Have some trust. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming by, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you still have questions, you can leave them here. Be sure to like the Zillow page because we're going to be doing some more of these broadcasts. In fact, our next one, if you're one of those people that you want to buy a home, but you're just not sure that this is the year, we're going to talk about renting versus buying. So if you like the Zillow page, we'll notify you when that's coming up. So for now, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.